I think that you are the most interesting person at the CFL Combine.
Wow. Well, thank you very much. That's
And I feel like that is an earned accolade, if you want to call it that, because I do research, right? So I'm on the microphone for CFL.ca and cover the combine and all of these things. And I research a lot of backstories, and I don't often come across people who from England made their way to the SEC, then go over and join the USC football program. Oh, by the way, I happen to have a background in motorsport. I've been teammates with George Russell, Max Verstappen, all these guys. So it's an amazing journey that you've been on. And for the people that are just getting acquainted with you or hearing a little bit about your story, what do you want them to know about how you got here, sitting in this hotel room in Toronto, getting ready for the Global Combine?
It's definitely a weird one. I will admit, not many people have been through all of the paths that I've been through. It's definitely been tough, but it's been a lot of fun. I'm very fortunate to be in the position that I'm in. And hopefully I can make the most of it this weekend. And I get a call in a few weeks' time and I'm back somewhere up here, up north in lovely Canada.
Yeah. So you started out in racing. How did you first dip your toes into motorsport?
In motorsport? Okay, so my dad was involved in motorsport before I was born. He did some stuff with BMW. And when I was like 8 years old, just randomly takes me karting one time. And I loved it. I couldn't get enough of it. And we started a racing team around me at that young age. And I worked my way through the ranks of karting when I was younger. And when I was about 12 or 13, I got the call up to one of the big Italian factory teams at Intrepid over in Maranello. So a lot of the big drivers all drove for a bunch of teams that are stationed there in Italy in a really small town, which is weird because all the best drivers in the world are in this small town in Italy. So travel over there. I had my tryout with the team where some other drivers that had already been with the team came down to like drive next to us in the same equipment to see how we would compare. Like Charles Leclerc was our guy when I was there, and I got to go against him one-on-one, just running around the track in South Garda. And then I was on the team. I did well at that category at KF3, and then went up to the next one and did a bit of car stuff in between that and going on. And then when I got to 18, I guess it all came to an end.
Well, yeah. So this is, and I'm going to go more in depth on some of the Formula One stuff with you in a minute. But the reason I wanted to do something longer form with you in this format was because I chatted with you earlier today, and your story is so interesting. But also, you had a real passion for that, like you say, when you're 8 years old.
For racing?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you couldn't have pried it away from me.
Yeah, and you loved it so much. But then some of the profiles and background that I had read on you, it was, I loved it. I was climbing through the system. I had this team built where I was in Maranello. I'm from Milton Keynes in England. It's around the Red Bull facility. I've done Red Bull simulator work and
cut. Yeah, literally that's how it was.
So
that's exactly how it was.
But explain that to me, because obviously it led you down a different path that has you sitting here in Toronto with me. But explain how you go from loving that so much into, well, I've got to change my direction of my life.
So when I was 18, going to university, I was told, you got to go to university. Education is very important. Education comes first. Just good with me. I would advise that to everybody. Any parents out there that are doing the same thing with their kids, for sure, education comes first. I'm there at university. In terms of moving forward with education and where the budget was for the next few seasons, it was decided, look, this is effectively the end of the road. Unfortunately, it's not because you're not talented enough, and it's not because the offers to drive for certain teams are not there. Could have gone and done F3 in Europe. The drive opportunities were there, but it was told to me that that's not going to be possible.
So was that your parents saying, listen, education, like, I'm sorry, but we got to stop this here because we have to focus on education instead of because I've read the stories about Lewis Hamilton and his dad and the amount of travel that it takes, and basically being on the road for 3 out of every 5 days of the week, and then weekends you're racing, and then you're in school for 2 days, and then you're out, and it's chaos, right? And
absolutely.
It's not a normal upbringing.
Absolutely. You have to live racing if you are to be a top racing driver. And not only you, but the support group around you also has to live it. So in the case of Lewis Hamilton, his dad worked like 2-3 jobs, and so on and so forth. And my parents have certainly done a similar thing for me when I was younger in racing. But when I got to 18, the education part and the budget part didn't add up anymore, and that was it, I suppose. And because of that, I went from one day like, okay, I'm going to be a racing driver. If anyone asks me, what are you going to do? I'm saying, this is what I'm going to do. all the teammates that were around me, all the guys I ever raced against in a close capacity, that's what they're all doing now professionally. And then it's just me. It's weird. I always think to my last World Series race when we were at Zuero and we had qualifying. I look at like the top 10, and it was like Callum Islet put it on pole. He's driving IndyCar. I was on second. Russell was like sixth or seventh. He's Formula One. Lando Norris was in the class below. He's Formula One. Mick Schumacher was in the class below. He's Formula One. A bunch of guys that I've driven with in a close capacity are all racing professionally in some manner. And it was just the case that it was not going to be the case for me. And that's how it was. And it was a very sharp reality. And I guess I was kind of lost. I didn't really know what to do. I just
well, yeah, and that's kind of what I'm, in terms of the personal side. It's like, yeah, focus on education. Sorry, that's done. But like, take me to where your mind was at that point, because you're still very much in your formative years when you're 18 years old. When you're 18, you think you know everything, but then you turn 19, you realize at 18 you didn't know anything. You turn 20, you realize at 19
I didn't know anything.
It's continual, right? And so, was it painful? Like, did it hurt to give it up? Like,
Absolutely.
how long did that take you to get over the idea that, wow, I'm actually not doing this thing that I thought I was destined to do?
I would feel.
Are you over it? Like,
no, I'll never get over it. It's the honest truth. I simply had like a numb feeling to it, because I couldn't really believe that it was the case, that my racing career had come to an end in the manner which it came. But it was a harsh reality, and it was indeed a reality, and I had to just move forward with it. And I very quickly went out of my way to find a sport which I could replace with the one I had been doing my entire life. And when I put myself into that sport, even though I didn't know it and ended up being football, I went at it in the same vigor or manner that I had gone into racing with. And so I was like, well, okay, well, this is now my sport. And people are, oh, why do you care about football? Like, you've been playing it like 3 years. Like, why are you moving to America because of football? And I'm just, you don't get it.
Are you viewed as an outcast among some of your
American?
Well, just are you viewed as an out? I don't mean by Americans that are saying, oh, there's this English guy, I don't know much about him, he's from a motorsport background. I'm saying, like, when you first found your love for football, whether it be American football, Canadian football, stylistically, whatever, when you start saying, I'm going, because obviously, I mean, motorsport, so big, huge. And, part of me identifies as, because I'm a Ferguson, as like a Scottish guy. So I'm looking in the background. I'm like, I feel like I have this pull to it, because I almost feel like I'm part of that background, where I love the energy that everyone puts behind it in the UK. But then naturally, you could be playing soccer, football, or you could be doing rugby, or you could, when you say, you know what, I'm going to play a team sport and it's going to be American football. What was the reception to that from people when you said, this is my sport of choice?
People, in terms of like my friends and stuff, they were like, oh, that's cool. A bit confused. Don't know why you're doing that. But whatever. Like, when I first started, people just had it that I was just doing it as a pastime. It's going to be whatever. Like, you were a racing driver. That's not what you do anymore. People always refer, you were a sportsman or you were an athlete. Now you're not. And maybe you're just doing this for a bit of fun. But for me, it was never that. Like, people, when I was back in the UK, would always ask me, just before I made my move to the US, like, what's the chance you go pro though? Like, what's the actual like chance, like percentage? And every time people ask me that, I tell them 100%. There is no scenario which will pass where I'm not a professional football player in North America. And I truly believe that.
That's awesome. I love the drive and energy. When we spoke earlier today, I said, because you were talking about being on scout team, whether it was Vanderbilt or USC, and the joy that you speak of being on scout team with, and this is not a slight in any way to you, but it's that I come from a culture of football in Canada where if people are on scout team, they feel like most people feel like, well, I haven't accomplished my goal, or I'm not contributing to the team, or because it's almost the idea of kind of capitalism where it's like, well, if I'm not making the most money, then I'm a failure.
Then I'm not contributing.
Exactly. Right. And it's like, we set this unattainable standard where everybody has to be the best. And I love your enthusiasm for, I don't know, if I'm on a team, if I'm on a roster, I've made it. And I'm going to keep progressing. I might be scout team at USC, but I'm going to do my damnedest to win the best
scout team player that there is.
Which you did at USC.
Absolutely.
And so being able to approach it with that energy, I imagine that, first of all, that really endears you to CFL and NFL teams.
Absolutely.
And second of all, I would imagine that's an incredible tool to have for your own mental health, like to keep yourself motivated and to be happy and healthy. And you know what? Every day I'm going to get up and I'm going to attack this for what it is, because there's so many people who just get stuck in the mud.
And then just say, whatever.
I haven't made it. I'm going to give up.
Give up. Yeah. So see, for me, that's not an option. There's been many times where I'm in a very sticky situation, both coming into college football when I've been there, and I find myself in a position where I'm like, wow, I don't know what I can do to improve my situation on my footing. But giving up or failing is not an option. Small failures or failings do not equal failure. Failure is just me saying, okay, I'll just go and work in finance or something, or go and work in business, or move myself into recruiting or something of that notion. When I set my goal for football, giving up would be the only way I could fail, and that would be on me. And I will never do that to myself.
I also love the idea that, you got a motorsport background and you played all this football and bounced around, but oh, by the way, you also happen to have 2 master's degrees.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, when the education is king, as we've talked about here, that's an important part of what comprises you as a person, right? Which the internships that you've had are very
I've done some all right internships. If anyone's checked my resume, it's certainly gone well, and I keep up with the companies that I've interned at in the past. And whether I finish my career and go into finance or go into commercial consulting or banking or whatever it may be, I should be okay. But mostly that's not because of me. That's because my parents have put me in a very good position educationally to be able to do that.
Right. Yeah. And so you've got this kind of well-rounded background, but like you say, football is what you want to accomplish. I want to go backwards for a second and allow you to tell the story of when you decide that you're going to university. Education basically predetermines that motorsport's done. You need to go off to school. Okay, cool. So you go to Durham University, and then you walk onto the program there, correct?
Correct.
At Durham University. And like I say, everybody thought you were doing this as a pastime or whatnot. 2018 national champion. Right? Like,
yeah.
I mean, just another little tick on the box.
I mean, it was the first season I was there. We won the vice national championship. Just like won. We came second, which was unfortunate. We missed a field goal, and that was the end of the season. That was hard to take. The second season, I came back. I trained the entire off season. I was like, I'm going to be a running back now. So before I was kind of playing it, I was getting into it. Now I'm like, I'm going.
What were you your first year before you really went full?
I mean, I was running back, and I was playing some slot receiver here and there, a bunch of special teams, but I was never coming into the season the starter.
Yeah.
And the team had their scholarship running back in place, so on and so forth. But the second year when I came back, they said, we'll take one of these scholarships and spend it on a different position, because we've got this running back, and we've got me, as opposed to just bringing in an American, which would usually be the case at the university in the United Kingdom. And then, like I said, we end up winning the national championship. I'm fortunate enough for me, I had a great O-line. I ended up scoring the touchdown to win the game, and I was really happy with that. And then from there, I went to the US for a camp in the summer, and it was advised to me, go and walk on to a Division I program in the United States.
And you picked Vanderbilt based on
academics,
right? Okay,
at the time, I did the Masters in Financial Mathematics, and it was ranked #1 in the world in the Financial Masters, according to the Times, I believe, higher education.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, I laugh at this just because we have this unrealistic perception of what SEC football is. People kill places in the SEC that are not Bama, Georgia, Florida, right? But if you look at some of the academic standards for places like Vanderbilt, it's like, there might be a reason why Vanderbilt doesn't.
It's so hard to get into Vanderbilt. People don't get it. It's for an undergrad, you've got to have like incredible score. So there's no other team in the SEC that is even close to holding their players to an academic standard that Vanderbilt is.
Do you feel like it was the perfect fit for you to get your foot in the door of playing Division I football, because it was academically what you were looking for, but it was also, I'm sure, the exposure of being able to call yourself an SEC football player in Division I.
It was a great running back room. I had Keyshawn Vaughn in there, and he ended up going and playing for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The coach, Tim Horton, was fantastic. He really helped me out in that first year. And the coach, Derek Mason, who's now at Auburn, was at Auburn. He just left Auburn. It was a fantastic coach as well. So it was definitely the right place to go. And I convinced my parents it was the right thing to do, given, the education was of such a high level. They were happy for me to go and do that. Worst case scenario, you get a master's degree from the #1 ranked financial mathematics masters in the world, and the world's your oyster. so to speak.
Yep.
But for me, that was never really the plan.
So coaching staff changes over at Vandy, and you start looking around, and you were told, listen, transfer portal, probably the way to go here. And then
yeah,
what
we had gone through spring ball,
yeah,
and just before COVID had happened, maybe there was 60 or 70 team reps had been given out to running backs, and I had maybe taken one. And I thought to myself, well, I just came off the back of a really good season of practice for you guys at the end of the year, and you told me, oh, I'll come back. There's going to be fair competition, so on and so forth. New staff, things change. Transfer portal was the best way to go.
So tell me about your transfer portal experience, because I think a lot of people in Canada, they're interested in, oh, the transfer portal seems like this fun free agency process, but what is it actually like to live?
It's not like that at all, especially if you're a walk-on. Really, it's you contacting teams. I made this huge index when I was in England, and I updated it of every single college coach's email address and phone number in the entirety of Division One football. So if there's any FBS coach watching and they look at their email and they just type my name in, there will be an email in there from me. Say, hey, I hit the transfer portal. Would it be possible to speak to you, coach? This is my highlight tape. This is what I've done at Vanderbilt. I think I can bring value to your team. And then I followed up with a bunch of calls. Usually you just get no answer for the very most part. But every single coach, every player personnel guy, every single recruiting analyst, every single quality control analyst, everyone I contacted. It is not all fun and games if you did not play high school football in the United States and you don't have some stars next to your name on 24/7 Sports or Rivals or something of that nature.
Yeah, I mean that's the basic accolades. If you're not on the ESPN top 100, then you're probably not getting the calls back of, hey, please, we want, because if you're somebody like I'm thinking of a Justin Fields or someone like
get
that,
calls immediately.
Well,
or like
announce that you're
Jackson Dart or someone like
yes.
he just left USC. He probably got calls off every team in the country.
Where did he end up? Was he
Ole Miss?
Ole Miss, yeah. He's going to go hang out with Lane Kiffin, I guess.
Yeah. Mike Trigg went over there as well. They're two great players. He's going to be fantastic. He's a really great guy as well.
So you battled through, but I love the idea that, and this is probably a disconnect for people that understand the prowess that comes with being at USC. You go from, I'm calling a billion people, I'm not getting any answers, it's all going to voicemail, to I went to USC.
I ended up going to USC.
How does that work? Did you finally get a call back? Did you just harass long enough?
I had harassed for a bit of time. And
were they a target of yours? Like, did you really want them?
Specifically. Them and Florida was another large one. And I got on the call back, and a bunch of guys were hurt, et cetera. And eventually they said, look, we can make a place for you on the roster to come in for full camp. And that was all I needed to hear. I said, yeah, sweet. I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna just keep it my all. I can assure you of that. Came in, started practicing, was going very well. And I was really unfortunate. Took a very nasty injury in one of the practices at the start of the season. And that was the end of that season, I suppose.
Yeah. So your first year there, you end up breaking your fibula in a practice roster drill.
Very nasty.
Not ideal. And interesting, the connection that you have with your parents, and knowing that you had to tell them that you were injured, because they have there's this sense of trust, right? Of, okay, you're going to go play this game that your parents are probably not really familiar with. Plus they're involved in all these different, business, and you're saying, listen, I want to do sports. I want to be in America because that's the place where I need to play this sport. And I'm going to be on the opposite side of the continent away from you. And then you break your fibula
and I break my leg,
and you have to
call them and tell them. For my mother, it's different. My mother was probably just worried about my health. She doesn't care about are you good or bad. Yeah, just as long as you're healthy. It was the same when I was racing. Just she wants to see me in one piece at the end. So I was scared to tell her, because I was like, oh, she's going to be so worried. And I was scared to tell my dad because he's going to be so disappointed in that was the case. And it was a tough one, picking up the phone in the taxi on the way to the hospital. My legs hanging off. I'm like, oh no. It's 2 a.m. They're not expecting this call.
Yeah,
I got to call them, let them know.
Good on you for getting a hold of them as quickly as you possibly could, because I think there's a lot of people that would probably dodge that one and call them a week later and go, hey, a thing happened. And
they carted me off the field, put me in an Uber to go to the, someone drove me to the hospital. And I literally got in the back of the car and just called them immediately and just said, hey, just so you know, this is the case. I'm going to be in hospital. I imagine I'll have emergency surgery, which I did end up having. I apologize. I'm so sorry.
And you felt the need to apologize. I find that interesting because it's not in your control.
it's one of those things, regardless of whether it was in my control or not. It was a reality, and was not what was expected of me or the season. And so I just the only thing I think to say was I'm sorry.
But you battled back, you made your way through, you got back on your feet quicker than you expected to.
Way quicker than
Yeah.
expected. I wasn't supposed to be back healthy. Oh, maybe we'll start like running you again in the spring. Maybe you get back by like the end of the season.
So this is spring of 21, right?
Yeah. Spring of 20. Oh, maybe we get back by the end of the season. You could run by maybe February or March, and I'm out there running. Me and Mark UP, most of the time will like break into the side of the field through the fence. There was a big enough gap. We was out there running at Christmas Day, just to make sure that we're getting ahead of schedule, make sure that we're on top of things, because just doing the bare minimum and getting back when people say you'll be back is not good enough in my opinion.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And so you're at USC and you end up battling your ass off throughout the year. You and I were joking about the reality of being a scout team player as well.
Oh, what? You're getting hit every play. Every play.
Yeah. And so you're looking now in the CFL for an opportunity to get drafted and contribute. Like you want to be on a roster and make a game day and go out with your name introduced. And,
absolutely.
Right. And that would be the ultimate reward for you, would it not, in this journey at this point?
It would be.
To get an opportunity to contribute, because you've been grinding for 17,
yes.
18, 19 Vandy, 20 COVID season, 21. It's been a long grind for you to get to this point.
It's been a long road to get to this point, but I mean, recognition, like you said, there would be nice, but truly, I think at the end of it, I can look back and say the process of the entire thing is what I am most fortunate for, to have lived it and to have done it, even though a lot of it wasn't easy, especially trying to walk onto an American football team when you were from England was not easy at all. I can be happy, especially if I get a lucky call in a few weeks' time, that I'm truly enjoying this process and I'm here and I'm doing it.
Well, I think a lot of CFL fans, after listening to this, will beg of their team to draft you because you're a very likable guy.
Oh, they're too kind if that's the case.
They'd love to see your name on the back of the uniform, I think, in whatever city that they live in. But before we get out of here, I do just want to ask you more about F1 stuff. Because
let's go. I can talk all day.
I know, me too, man.
Who's your favorite driver?
Yeah, so this is the funny thing for me, is that I've never really truly had a favorite driver, but I grew up in Lewis's era of dominance.
Okay.
And so for some people, obviously, that means that you hate him because he's winning every race and you get tired of it.
Well, people hated Vettel.
Yes. Yeah. If you're in Schumacher's era, some people hated Schumacher for winning.
Yeah, wins everything.
It doesn't matter, right? Everybody's going to have their feelings about that. But for me, I've never really had a true favorite driver. Like I'm a Buffalo Bills fan.
Okay.
Because I grew up a Bills fan, because I love Doug Flutie and I loved it. And I'd gone to games because it was the closest team to me and all this. And the experience was amazing. I never had that growing up because I never latched onto a team. I've always just cheered for the environment, for a crazy race, for a fun day, for, essentially chaos.
Let's go.
To break out whenever it happens. So, if we're getting, as long as nobody's hurt, as long as we're getting a couple of virtual safety cars and a couple of red flags,
let's keep it interesting.
For you, I've seen the picture of you with Lewis, right? When you won the gift, what was the gift award?
It was, that specific award was called the Lewis Hamilton True Grit Award. And it was in a karting British Championship round. And I had qualified like right at the back. My engine had blown up during qualifying. And then I end up just off the podium from like the back of the grid. And then, you could have won this round if you had done it. If you had been in the front, you can't win them all, I think is what I remember saying, or something like that. And they gave me the award. A bunch of drivers got the award for that type of thing. And then we got to go to McLaren and meet Lewis, which was cool. The McLaren Technology Center in Woking is insane.
Yep.
It's like this like yin and yang shaped building, but there's like a skywalk and it's crazy.
That's with the pond.
Oh yeah, the big pond. Yeah. It's insane. You've never seen anything like it in your life. I promise you. It's insane.
Did you walk past the trophy case?
Oh yeah, we walked past everything. All the cars are lined up in the foyer. Ron Dennis is just walking around upstairs. He's the team principal. We're looking up like, is that Ron Dennis? This is insane.
That's awesome. Yeah, the idea of being in that, again, for somebody from Canada, that's surreal. But for you, even growing up in England, that's still surreal.
Still crazy,
special, right?
Motor racing is a very big deal over in Europe, and in Canada it's a big deal. America, not so much of a big deal. They've got some other sports that they've got IndyCar, they got their own thing. But Formula One in Europe is huge.
So if it was, Lewis, and you get to meet him at a young age, and you've been to McLaren, and you've been, Were you a Lewis guy through and through? Was it a team
When I was
affiliation that you
young,
were
I
playing
was
for?
I was a real Lewis guy for
Yeah.
sure. Mostly because like he had grown up in a similar way to myself. Oh,
Yeah.
okay, cool. Parents are working hard to get you into racing and so on and so forth. And I was just like, I can really relate to this guy. And not only that, he's a great racing driver,
Yeah.
evidently. And then when I got into racing, I can really remember my early years back in like 2007, 2008. It's when he came on the scene and all of a sudden he's going crazy. And I'm like, wow, this guy's crazy. Drives for McLaren, came from Stevenage. He drives at all the tracks that I used to drive at and so on and so forth. So I'm just like, I was a Lewis guy through and through.
What has made him great to you?
Lewis,
Yeah.
mindset.
Yeah.
Mindset for sure. He's one of the most positive individuals on the grid, but at the same time, one of the most hardworking individuals on the grid. He doesn't let anything get in his head, and things go wrong with his car, things go wrong on a race, and so on and so forth. If you keep up with what he's actually doing, a lot of people think he's pretentious. He's just a positive guy, a really positive guy.
What is it about his driving style
that makes him good?
Yeah, that you think
It's really
different?
smooth.
Yeah.
Really smooth on the steering wheel. So
because people always say it's just like his violent ability to underbrake, like going into corners, like he has this ability to wait. And his dad.
So he's the last of the late breakers. Him
Right.
and Ricardo. So Lewis Hamilton never hits the apex at all, but his entry speed is insane. Like that's where he makes all of his time, just entry speed, and his steering is super smooth. So he deals really well with tire degradation. Some drivers have a really interesting turning style. The biggest one would be Alonso. Alonso has like a really specific turning style where he throws the wheel and then comes off the wheel and then feeds it back in, which is not what they teach you.
Seems inefficient.
It seems inefficient, but the way he makes it work, it works. I promise you, if you think it's not the case, just go online and just look up a video of, say, Alonso steering, and you'll see that it's completely different from every single other driver. But Lewis is super smooth on the wheel, almost like driving with feathers, and it works for him smooth as fast.
I would imagine being in the Mercedes probably helps that.
Being in the Mercedes for the last few years helps. It does.
But I mean, he's done it his whole career, no doubt. And I also love the fact that he's gone back to the yellow helmet this year because it's just an ode to his karting history, right?
It is. He had the karting helmet yellow because Senna's was yellow and it's his favorite driver. He's now got like a neon green, which is a bit what like a Lando Norris has as his helmets. Because it's what Valentino Rossi had as his. So they're all just paying homage to one another. But I like the Lewis.
The thing that jumped out to me too, though, was when I saw Lewis had gone from the black and purple and all the rest that he had the last couple of years to this super bright. It's kind of like flashy and
it's like a flamboyant neon yellow.
And that's not, even though he's I wouldn't call him eccentric, but it's an eccentric helmet. And I thought, to me, in sports psychology, that's a guy who he just had his crown taken last year in an unfair way, and he's pissed. He's never going to tell everybody he's pissed, but that was stolen from him. He had a chance to be able to set record on record.
A chance?
Yeah, like he should have.
A lot of people in the racing world do not recognize that loss as a loss.
Yeah,
really, because it was a very interesting turn of events, which led to him not winning.
And so to me, when I see that helmet, it almost signifies him saying Max has switched his helmet over to having all this gold on it. And he switched his racing number from 33 to 1. And so Max is basically sending this message of, it's,
I'm the champion.
I'm the champion. I'm in charge now. I'm wearing 1. I got gold all over myself. I'm the Red Bull. We've got all these huge sponsorship deals. The baton has been passed, and I'm the king now. And Lewis is like,
nope.
No, and the car might not be where it's supposed to be at this point with Mercedes, but that helmet, I might be reading too much into it, but that helmet to me said, you know what, I'm going back to my roots, and I'm just going to be the badass that I was when I climbed the sport.
That's his mentality. Like I said, he wants to get after it. He's positive about where he's at. Okay, whatever. This bad thing happened to me. I'm gonna move past it. I'm gonna continue working. That's what he's doing.
Yeah. What's your favorite track?
And
I know that there's all sorts of different varieties and ways that you can go, but really, you love Spa.
Spa. My favorite kart track is in Belgium. My favorite F1 track is also in Belgium.
What's your favorite part of Spa? I mean, Eau Rouge, I know is the big sexy Radion and everything, and climbing up the hill. But
it's the only place in the world with like a steep climb or descent that is of that magnitude. There's a similar one at Brands Hatch, which is really cool. But the modern Formula One cars couldn't take that. These days, it'd be way too fast. The track would be too small.
The part I find amazing about Spa is, and amazingly difficult as somebody who just, I don't exactly get in the simulator, but in Formula One in the video game, is when you're driving around kind of like the 2/3 part of the track. I don't know which corner number it is, and you basically have that long right-hander that winds you down the hill. It's like the blind left that leads you into the high speed left, like it's an off.
Go back up the hill towards,
it's
towards the sub.
Like that section to me is just, and the lap is so damn long.
Yeah.
It just wears guys out.
Yeah.
It's a physical task, right? And
it's meant to. People don't understand as well how much elevation change there is over the lap. It's insane. Like going through a rouge, you go up the hill all the way to the top. And for the rest of the lap, you're making your way back down until you get to the back straight, which you're talking about. And then you make your way back up the hill through the bus stop chicane, and then you go over the line.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an amazing spot. What's your honest assessment of the Canadian Grand Prix?
I love it.
Yeah.
The Villeneuve track.
Yeah,
I love the Canadian Grand Prix. I remember when I was in F1, when I was like playing F1 on PlayStation and stuff like that back in the day. I always used to love driving around that track. And when I in my recent memory of racing when I was younger, one of my favorite races was I think in 2012 in Canada, where Button won.
2011
or 2011, and everyone was just crashing. It's raining, it's sunny because the weather was so temperamental at the time. It's a beautiful place.
Yeah, it's on an island in the middle of the St. Lawrence River is where the track actually is.
Where it is. I've never been.
Yeah, so I mean, you would love it if you went. It's a great, and the only way that you can get to the island is through the subway. So you end up having like, however many 100,000 people pile in on the subway and then all pile out to get back out because it's on this island. But I mean, yeah, if you get a day in June when it's usually hosted where there's rain clouds coming and going and you're in the middle of the river, and you can get some crazy conditions for sure. But yeah, I mean, it's a fun time, I'm sure. And if you end up getting drafted
I'd
by
love
the
to go.
Alouettes,
Maybe I end up going.
This is
that
where
would be great.
You need to sit down with the Alouettes and say,
I would love.
Listen, guys, I'd really like to be a part of your team.
Canada is such a beautiful place that I would be happy on any of the teams. But if I got to go to one of the Grand Prix, that would be cool. If any of my former teammates are listening, or any of my former competitors, I know I've driven against quite a few Canadian guys. Would like to bring me in. I'd love to go.
Awesome. Well, Samuel, thank you for the time, man.
No, thank you very much. It's been my pleasure.
Yeah, we've been trying to set this up all throughout the day while we've been hanging out at the Combine and finally got a chance to sit down.
Yeah, it's been hectic.
Chop it up. So congratulations, and I hope the weekend goes great for you.
Thank you ever so much.